As drones identify critical gaps in the Army's layered air defenses, they're testing a system called GRIZZLY that could help fill at least some of that gap. To be fair, it isn't particularly revolutionary. It's just a missile launcher stuffed inside of a shipping container that doesn't even fire a new missile. What's most interesting about GRIZZLY isn't the missile or the launcher, it's that this system even exists at all. So today, we're looking at what GRIZZLY is, what it is meant to shoot down, why the Army thinks that it needs it in its layered air defenses, and, of course, what it lacks. GRIZZLY is a containerized missile launcher developed by Lockheed Martin that they say they put together in just 6 months. Being so new, there really isn't any footage of this, and I've only seen a handful of still images, so please don't kill us for using generic air defense footage in order to keep this video visually engaging for all of our shot-to-hell attention spans. Packed into a 10-foot shipping container, hence the containerized badge that's slapped on it, the system is designed to be transported by truck, ship, rail, cargo aircraft, even helicopters. This allows it to be rapidly deployed wherever additional air defense coverage is needed, something we've seen become exceptionally important as the war with Iran continues on, and we shift assets all over the world just to stay in the fight. The recent demonstration paired the launcher with Lockheed's Sanctum battle management system and a Fortum radar. Together, they detected, tracked, and engaged a Group 3 drone using a JAGM interceptor. Group 3 drones are Shahed-sized, or technically medium-sized UAVs. They fly slower than 250 knots and have a gross takeoff weight below 1,320 pounds, but more than 50 pounds. Right now, these are a significant problem facing the United States and the Middle East, and Ukraine has had more than its fair share of battling Russian drones. So it is really important that we figure this out. One interesting aspect of this system is the missile used for the test. They went with an AGM-179 Joint Air-to-Ground Missile, or a JAGM. This was the successor to the AGM-114 Hellfire, which is a staple, or was a staple, and mostly still is, even though the JAGM is intended to be the Hellfire's replacement. As you probably picked up in the name, the JAGM is intended to be fired from the air to hit ground targets. This scenario just reverses that, taking an already proven and available weapon and pairing it with equipment to turn it into a drone killer. This isn't really a new concept, and the Navy has been repurposing older missiles like the Hellfire that they've used to shoot down drones in their Red Sea fight with the Houthis and elsewhere. When you break it down, a missile is just a missile. What's really important is what guides it to its target, whether that be heading to a fixed point dialed in by coordinates, or a laser designator, infrared seeker, or some sort of AI-enabled terminal guidance. The real challenge, especially these days with small, highly maneuverable drones, is finding the target, identifying it, tracking it, and deciding whether it should be engaged, and then assigning the right interceptor for it. Even though the targets are much smaller, this is the same problem as it ever was with air defense. So using a JAGM to shoot down a UAV kind of just comes down to software. Now, that is an incredibly simplified breakdown, but it helps drive home that missiles aren't necessarily special, and we can use existing systems for new threats in ways that we never thought of before. To understand why the Army is interested in systems like GRIZZLY, it helps to look at how the battlefield has changed. 20 years ago, air defenders had a relatively straightforward job. The big threats were planes and helicopters, and whatever drones there were typically unarmed, slow, and flying lower than something with a jet engine. The only other threats really coming from the air that we could intercept were cruise and ballistic missiles, but we've had systems like Patriot to deal with them. You could get away with designing fancy systems and expensive interceptors because you were hitting expensive aircraft and fancy missiles. Nowadays, a drone that costs a few $100 and weighs less than 250 grams can be precision guided into your command post from just 100 kilometers away. A little perspective here, because 2,000 kilometers is roughly the distance between Havana, Cuba and New York City. The fact that a roughly $50,000 drone can fly that distance and hit a chosen target should not be lost on us during this entire discussion. I mean, seriously, that reality just changed the whole calculus around air defense, and theater defense in a huge way. Bottom line, you absolutely want to shoot these threats down, but you don't necessarily want to spend $4 million using a missile that you only make a few hundred of each year. If you're using an expensive interceptor to shoot down a cheap drone, it doesn't really matter what you're protecting if you're going bankrupt doing it. Now, using a JAGM that costs less than $325,000 doesn't flip that math in our favor directly, but it sure beats spending $1 million. Lockheed also says that the platform is missile agnostic, so even cheaper weapons could be used because what really matters is detection and guidance. It's easy to look around and say that we have been caught flat-footed by the drone problem, and that really isn't unfair, but we should also consider how quickly drones went from minor annoyance to exceptionally deadly battlefield scourge in less than 10 years. The first time that quadcopters really started getting widespread attention was probably Mosul in 2017, when Iraqi forces that were trying to take the city back over from ISIS were encountering these drones, watching them, and dropping grenades on them. That was 2017. Look where we are today. Because of that, we are essentially having to invent a whole new layer of air defense. Now, we did have the counter-rocket artillery and mortar, or CRAM, starting around 2004, but those were used to shoot down rockets, artillery, and mortars. Those systems, along with the Godfather phalanx on Navy warships, have certainly been used to take out drones, but our coverage with CRAM isn't great, and if the threat is flying low, like Shahed and other small UAVs often do, CRAMs aren't going to be much help. You also need line of sight, so engagements typically happen at close range, and in a swarm, even a handful of CRAMs can be quickly overwhelmed. All that's just to really say that the rapidly changing battlefield and incredible innovation have created a significant capability gap in our air defenses, especially of the short-range variety, which is commonly called SHORAD. Air defenses, like any other defenses, have always come in layers, and yes, that includes SHORAD, or short-range air defense. You had systems like the Avenger, VADS, Stinger, which could be shoulder-fired or fired from a vehicle-mounted launcher, and yes, the CRAM, but besides that, we didn't have much to detect and deal with smaller threats because those didn't really exist. This system and others like it offer a solution, at least partially, to that missing piece in SHORAD. The ability to engage targets rapidly, at range, and with some decent magazine depth will help fill some gaps while we work out solutions to the others. That partially answers why the Army might want this system, but to answer the rest, we are going to have to talk about reality as it exists today, layered defenses, what other systems exist, and maybe we're gonna have to be mean to some of your opinions, so strap in, try not to get offended. We harp on this every time. Not everything is supposed to do everything, and drones aren't some miracle weapon that is making everything that came before them obsolete. Lots of smart folks thought that the machine gun would make ground warfare obsolete in World War I. So we invented tanks. Tanks were supposed to make infantry obsolete, then infantry started carrying around heavier rifles to puncture the tank's armor. So tanks upped their armor, and then infantry came with shoulder-fired rockets, then the armor got upgraded, then new ways to kill that armor, and on and on and on it goes, and drones are just another evolution on the battlefield. One of the major things that drones are changing, at least in my opinion, and honestly in my opinion, this might be the biggest thing that drones are changing. It's that intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR, is common, it's everywhere, it's cheap, everyone has it. If something is out in the open, you almost have to assume it is being watched, or will be shortly, and then it's probably going to get killed, or something's going to try to kill it. This makes setting up defensive systems like air defenses pretty damn difficult. Even being well hidden isn't a guarantee of survival if you're emitting a ton of noise on the electromagnetic spectrum. This means that a premium is being placed on mobility. The GRIZZLY and other palletized or containerized systems are becoming so popular now because they offer a significant degree of mobility. You can plop systems like this on the ground or on the back of a truck to move them rapidly. You can also move them through theaters and cargo aircraft or slung beneath helicopters. So they can be moved fast to where they're needed, or they can be moved on the battlefield to stay safe. Vehicle-specific systems for mobility aren't as appealing because then you can't use that vehicle for anything else. Modular systems that can be swapped out depending on the mission are good for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the Army is interested in that, and by fitting in a 10-foot Tricon, Grizzly gives them that flexibility. Cost is also a reason that the Army is interested in this capability. Using existing missiles helps reduce the cost per kill. A JAGM costs about $325,000. Compared to a PAC-3 at $4 million, that's a bargain, but it's expensive when you compare it to, say, a burst from a CRAM, which is just a few $1,000s. Now, with using a JAGM, you also don't need to invest in research and development for the missile, which can run into the billions and may not work out. It's when we start talking about cost, though, that these discussions tend to just fly off the rails. I did a short video about this system last week, and in the comments, people kept bringing up the APKWS-2 rockets. For those that may not know, the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System 2 is just a 70mm Hydra rocket fitted with a laser seeker. We've had these Hydra rockets for decades. They're proven, they're plentiful, and they're pretty cheap because they only cost about $35,000 per shot, and they can engage Group 3 drones. So compared to Grizzly and JAGM, it's a no-brainer, at least when all you're looking at is the cost. But being laser guided, you're going to be limited to just line of sight. So if you can't see that drone and hit it with a laser, the rocket won't find it. Its effectiveness is also limited in stormy conditions, dust, clouds, really anything that can interrupt that beam. This also applies to laser weapons and is one of the reasons that those are not a miracle weapon either. APKWS-2 rockets are also limited in range. From the air, they're good for about 3 miles. The JAGM is good for about 5, but from the ground, the range is likely reduced for both. So the rockets are cheaper, but they have limited range, and if, say, a sandstorm moves in, you're basically screwed. That is, unless you have a system that can use radar to detect and guide an interceptor to the threat through bad storms or red air, something like Grizzly. Having Vampire, which we've talked about and fires the APKWS-2 rockets, and the Grizzly would be a pretty solid start to a layered defense. Throw in some electronic warfare, jammers, passive detectors, perhaps even laser weapons, maybe some remote weapon stations that can lock a machine gun onto the threats, a CRAM, and you've got a nice little counter drone setup that can be moved without a ton of hassle. But individually, none of those systems are a great answer to anything, no matter what the cost, because they all have their own shortcomings and gaps that the enemy will most certainly exploit to kill that threat that they face on the ground. So this is where we get into layered defenses. Layered defenses. I really want to drive home. Layered defenses. Layered defenses. We also have other cheaper systems for this mission. The Coyote from Raytheon is one, and we do have a whole video on this one as well, but for around $200,000, troops are getting a counter-drone weapon and a ground strike option with the latest variants. Anduril's Roadrunner M is another. This takes off and lands vertically because it is recoverable and can take out drones and cruise missiles for about $500,000 according to Anduril. There are also a lot of laser solutions like Locust, Helios, and others, and of course cost per shot can be measured in single digits for those. And now what we're seeing are also a lot of remote weapon stations that mount 240s, SIG's medium machine gun, and other available weapons that can hook up with a radar for cheap and provide reliable counter-drone fire. Throw in Mirops, Ukrainian-style drone interceptors like Tycho.AI's Haley, and other developing technologies, and this gap is closing, but there are still gaps in our layered defenses. Now for the obligatory reality check. We will start with the obvious, and that is that a successful test is not the same thing as combat. Shooting down a drone in a controlled environment where your life isn't in danger just doesn't quite capture the chaos of a battlefield, and until this is fielded and takes out an enemy drone, we just don't know for sure if it will be any good. Magazine depth, or how many missiles fit, tops out at 8 for Grizzly, and now remember we have layered defenses, but time to reload or systems being overwhelmed by swarms is a real concern. Having 8 missiles doesn't mean you have 8 kills either. When you optimize for mobility, you're going to lose in other areas like firepower or durability, and In this case, getting too excited about the mobility might not be a good call, because you still have to move the kill chain with it and something to power it. This isn't a deal breaker, but it's not like you're just going to plop this thing on a truck and take off and put it wherever you want. The Fordham TrueView R40 radar, which they use for this test, is an advanced active electronically scanned array, or ESA system, so it can find and track multiple tiny targets, but in doing so, it also does put out some noise on the electromagnetic spectrum. ESA radars don't put out a lot because they can do things like beamforming and jump different frequencies, so it can be hard to track, but it is a reality that they do put out some noise on the spectrum, and that can give away its location, so it's something that we have to include here. The only thing that really doesn't give away a location is a passive detector, but you're not really gonna get super accurate with a passive detector. It just isn't gonna work out. But as we always say and can never say enough, no weapon is perfect. GRIZZLY has flaws, but other systems exist to compensate for that. And if I'm being just completely honest, at least this is something, because Group 3 drones are a huge problem and they're gonna continue to be, so at least we have something that we're working on for it. Because if we don't figure this out, it's just going to keep getting worse. So this is a step in the right direction, and it's hard to shit on it too much, but we got to point out the flaws in things because that's how you get better. That's how the military gets better, whether they want to believe that or not. So let us know what flaws you think exist with this thing, but before you do, please keep in mind that we're talking about layered defenses. This isn't going to plop down on a battlefield and shut down Group 3 drones like that. But in a layered defensive system, it might not be that bad, but tell us what the flaws are. Tell us what you think is good, bad, indifferent, whatever you got on it. Let us know in the comments. All right, now it's channel update time, and I wrote the script and Savvy edited the video. There really isn't a whole lot to go on today. I know I say that every time and then I talk for like 5 minutes afterwards. I apologize. I enjoy the ends of the videos. I'm done reading the script. I get to just kind of riff. I'm staring at my teleprompter screen, but I'm not reading anything. I'm just trying to make eye contact in the little camera there. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Couple videos that you're going to see. One on air superiority that David worked on. We kind of debunked some myths about air superiority. Spoiler alert, the Air Force doesn't expect to achieve it. That was kind of surprising to me, so stay tuned for that. We're also going to try to go and do some more traveling stuff. I really want to start shooting a very specific style of video. That's going to take a lot. We're really boxed in with 2 videos a week and trying to keep that pace, but we're trying to branch out and do some different things. So, you know, subscribe, like, comment, support us however you feel you can or want to. You can also support us by going to store.taskandpurpose.com. You can get shirts like this, hats like that. We have mugs, hoodies, polo shirts that I wear when I go out and be a fancy journalist guy out in public. Whatever you want, use code ACTUALLYWATCHED and you can get 10% off. It's not a ton, but it's good. It's better than nothing, I suppose. So if you want to support us that way, do it. It's up to you. I don't really care. If I made a big mistake and you really, really want to tell me about it, but you're afraid that I won't see it in the comments, go ahead and email me at kyle.gunn@taskandpurpose.com with corrections in the subject line. If it's something big, I will include it. If it's like, oh, you pronounced a word wrong, I'm going to keep doing that. It's just going to happen. If I fix every mispronounced word in the next video, half that video is going to be corrections. I just can't do it. So, but let us know if we made a mistake somewhere else. I'll disclose it at the end here. And you can feel a sense of accomplishment that you were right on the internet. That's a great feeling. Go for it. If you got to be right here, be right here. It doesn't really hurt me. So have fun. Have at it. I'm just going to shut up now. I'm Kyle, your friendly ginger producer man. You are all dismissed. I really appreciate you all being here with us today. I know I say it every video, but I sincerely mean it. Thank you so much, and I will see you all next time.